Great. Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us. We're excited today to have you on this session called Unveiling New Resources, and we'll be seeing two new resources that are just hot off the presses. One relates to National Days of Service, and the other to on-site orientation and training. Before we get started with the actual presentation, I want to just quickly review a few tips for participating. We do invite you to participate in the session, and there are several ways you can do that. If you have questions for any of our presenters, you can submit them at any time by using the Q&A feature, which you'll see in the bottom right corner of your screen. If your question doesn't get covered during the presentation, we will then queue them up for the formal question and answer portion of the session. And today we'll have two Q&A sessions. If we see a couple people or multiple people asking similar questions, I'll combine those together. So listen closely in case your question isn't answered verbatim, but it might be combined with another. Likewise, if you experience technical issues on the session, you can let us know through the Q&A feature. The chat feature, which you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, is one where you can share tips and ideas and information with each other. We're going to turn it off in just a second, and we'll restart it once the presentation begins. But we would like, now that we're getting started, we would like to keep your conversation in the chat focused on the topic. You can send a chat privately to the host and presenters, but your message to attendees will be visible to everyone. So keep that in mind as you compose your message. And as mentioned, we will be opening the phone lines later on, so you'll be able to ask questions by phone, and we'll instruct you when it's time to do that. Okay, so I'd like to formally welcome you to Unveiling New Resources, National Days of Service Project Ideas, and On-Site Orientation Training and Guidebook. My name is Andy King, and I work with the VISTA Training Unit, and assisting me today on our session is Robin Stegman and Suzanne Knisner, both of them project specialists with campaign consultation. You'll see all of us in the chat and the Q&A assisting you with technical support and also to help you get your questions answered. Here's what our agenda looks like for this session. We've just had the welcome portion, and you're going to hear about two different groups that participated in the Action Learning Challenge. The first challenge relates to National Days of Service and coming up with project ideas that VISTAs can use for those days of service. After we hear from that, the team that worked on that challenge, we'll have a chance for you to ask your questions. Then we'll look at the second challenge, the On-Site Orientation and Training Guidebook. And again, after that presentation, we'll have time for your questions. And from there, then we'll give you a little bit of a wrap-up information and invite you to our next presentation. So before we dive in, I want to just spend a few moments talking about the VISTA Leader Action Learning Challenge and give you a sense of what that is. Action learning is an approach to skill enhancement and leadership development that's used in lots of different organizations, including leading corporations, universities, and other institutions. In action learning, people work together in teams to accomplish real projects. And in the process of doing that, they build their skills in planning, communication, decision-making, cooperation, problem-solving, and other leadership skills. And the way we implement action learning with VISTA leaders, leaders work together in teams of 6 to 8 on a project that benefits the VISTA program. The teams work remotely. They never actually meet in person. And at the end of a 3 to 4 month process, they deliver a product that addresses that original challenge. And so today we're going to hear from two of the teams and see the products that they developed. So first, we'll take a look at the challenge that our first team took on, and that was to identify 5 to 10 successful volunteer projects that could be replicated by VISTA projects across the country for National Days of Service. And when we talk about National Days of Service, we're talking about things like the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, Make a Difference Day, National Family Volunteer Day, Joint Hands Day, sometimes during Volunteer Week, National Volunteer Week, or AmeriCorps Week. There's a call for large community volunteer projects to come together, and often VISTAs are called on to be part of that. So, so this team took on the challenge of looking to identify 5 to 10 projects that could be replicated by VISTA projects across the country. In the process of doing that, they looked to identify projects with a broad appeal to the VISTA program overall, and looks to incorporate opportunities that would work in a rural setting or urban setting, and to meet a host of other needs. Today we have with us 3 leaders from the team who worked on this project, and we're going to hear from Lexi Quick, who's with the New Hampshire Catholic Charities in Manchester, Chelsea Lesser from the Michigan Nonprofit Association in Lansing, and Katie Sadler-Stevenson from the Georgia 4-H in Eatonton. They'll tell us about the others on the team and show us the results of their work. Now I'm going to turn things over to Katie.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to start off with sharing my desktop. My name is Katie Sadler-Stevenson, and along with my teammates Chelsea Lesser and Lexi Quick, I'll be presenting our Action Learning Challenge final product to you. We're excited that all of you are here today with us to hear about our project, and we're excited to be learning more about the on-site orientation and training final project as well. As mentioned earlier, we're going to be addressing the topic of National Service Days and coming up with instructions for projects that could be used and repeated by a wide variety of VISTA sites. We ended up creating a rather lengthy but very useful document to address the many facets of planning a Service Day project, and to make the resources a little bit easier to digest, we then created a website, which is what I'm going to show you as soon as we get the screen sharing set up. So what we ended up doing, we were looking for a way to come up with service projects that we could fully describe for people to give fully detailed information. And we looked at a lot of different service projects, and we ended up selecting 5 that we'll show you as soon as we get this information set up. And the reason that we selected the 5 that we did was because they were projects that at least one person in our team had some sort of involvement with, and we felt like we could speak a little bit more in-depthly about how to do that and what would need to be done. The 5 projects that we did end up doing detailed instructions on are doing a book drive, doing a food drive, doing a military care packages drive to collect the packages from different resources in the community and then to put those together in places to send those, as well as doing a park cleanup. And then our final project that we did, which was one that takes a little bit less planning, is having a random acts of kindness time period, like a week, where you would have different projects that you would do. And I guess I can go ahead and just introduce you guys, tell you guys about the different members of our team. Jean Carocchio was our Action Learning Challenge coach, and she was really awesome, and we were all very excited to have the opportunity to work with Jean. Amanda Addington is the VISTA leader for the International Rescue Committee in Seattle, Washington. And we have Summer Red, who is in Roseburg, Oregon. She's the VISTA leader for the United Community Action Network there. Laura Martin, who is based in Oakland, California, and she serves as the leader with Oakland Unified School District. And then we have Chelsea Lesser, who she's also going to be presenting information today. She is in Lansing, Michigan with the Michigan Nonprofit Association. And then we have Lexi, who will also be presenting today, and she's in Manchester, New Hampshire with New Hampshire Catholic Charities. And then we have Karen D'Angelo, based out of Vinton, Virginia, and she's with the Advancement Foundation. And then there's me, and I am in Eatonton, Georgia with Georgia 4-H. We also have Kellyanna Foster, who is in Denver, Colorado, and she is with the Governor's Commission on Community Service. I'll tell you a little bit about the way our website is set up, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The reason that we set up the website is because the document is 90 pages long, and we wanted to find a way to make it a little bit more accessible by providing multiple ways to view it. In almost all cases, the final document and the website information are exactly the same. There are a few things that the website does have that our final document doesn't, like pictures of our team members, and just a couple of other little things where the website has been made a little bit more interactive. Across the top of our website, you'll see a navigation bar. So there's a team page that shows pictures of us. There's, a standard home page. We also have a page about the challenge, which talks a little bit about why we as a team felt committed to creating something to address the needs of service day project guides. We also have a page dedicated to the process of how we came up with our final document and website. We're not going to go through those today, but that's a Prezi-based timeline. There are also two other pages that are on the navigation bar, the projects and the resources, and those two pages contain the bulk of our information, and I'm going to skip the resource page right now because Lexi is going to go back and talk about that and just go straight onto the project page. So I'm going to start with our project page, which if you're looking at the website is the link at the top, sort of in the middle. Once you're on that page, the image on the right is the cover of our final document, and it actually serves as a hyperlink to the document. It's a PDF document if you want to open it up, but as a warning, it is a very large document, and it can take a while to load. Before I officially unveil that to you, which if you're following along, you may have already looked at it anyway, I'm going to scroll through the actual page and show you what we have on it. As you can see, we have the 5 projects that we've developed guides for: the book drive, a food drive, creating military care packages, a park cleanup, and a random acts of kindness project. If you're looking for just one project and don't want to download the full document, you can come to this page and just access that one project guide, as well as some useful editable documents. And so this is just kind of a different way to get that information without seeing all of it. So now I am going to go over and look at the large PDF, which is what the image that says National Days of Service Project Ideas. If you click on that, you will get it. And it, like I said, it may take a minute for it to load for you unless you have a super fast connection. I'm looking at page 2, which is our table of contents. The first thing when you look at that is that we have it separated out into 3 sections, and that's just for clarity and ease of use. Those sections are the challenge, the service projects, and the resources. And we're going to look at section 1 right now. So I am scrolling down to page 4. On page 4, we have an introduction to the challenge where we discuss the challenge that was presented to us. We also put together a list of commonly recognized days of service. It's not an exhaustive list of days of service, just some common ones. On page 5, we have just a little bit of information about our team. We discuss who we are and outline our motivations and goals for participating in this challenge. And then on page 6, we just have one of our section breaks, which we do these for each of the 3 sections, and this goes into the service projects, and that's where the bulk of our project lies. In the introduction to the service project, which is on page 7, that is going to address the challenge, give an overview of the adaptability of our projects and why we chose the ones we did. Following that, on page 8, we have a neat little tool to help you decide which project is right for you based on available resources such as time, money, and people. Now, if you continue down, you'll see that it goes into Project 1, the book drive, but we're actually not going to go to that page. I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea, and she is going to talk to you, and hopefully you'll be able to follow along. She's going to be talking about doing a food drive. All of our individual projects are set up the exact same way, so even though we won't view all of them today, you'll be able to still see how everything is the same in the layout that we've used. To get to the food drive project, in that large document, you can scroll to page 21. That's where it starts. If you had problems getting the full document to load and it's taking you a while, if you go back over to the project page on the website and click on the food drive graphic, that will pull up just the food drive document, and those page numbers are going to be exactly the same. So, Chelsea, are you ready?
Yep. Thanks so much, Katie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so just so everyone's on the same page, we are on page 21 of the larger document. And even if you're just on the food drive document itself, it's still page 21. So the page numbers are exactly the same in the broken up documents as they are in the large document. So that will kind of help you out a little bit. So you notice on page 21 that we have a table of contents. We love table of contents in our group. We have many of them. So you'll notice that there is a project summary, a project guide, and supplemental materials. And we broke these down to make it easy to find specific information within each guide. And each item on this table, such as the subheaders like timeline before you start, those things all have the same subheader to make them stand out and make them easier to find. So if you're still following along, let's go to page 22 next. This is our project summary. So each guide has a summary that was intentionally designed to provide the bare bones information of a project and help someone decide if this is a project that's right for them. Information that's here includes how many volunteers or VISTAs you will need, how much does this cost, the goals of the project, who the project will serve, and some additional notes with any other relevant information for the project specifically. Okay, so page 23, the next page, this is where we really get into our project guide itself. The first item that we have is a timeline, and that includes all the basic steps that need to be completed to organize a service project. It also shows the order of steps and when they should be completed. So this really helps people figure out what needs to happen and when it needs to happen in order to organize the service project. So on the next page, page 24, we have before you start. And this just includes some useful information on what you should consider before starting the project. We also have a supply list to show the supplies needed for the project and notes on how you can make community partnerships for this project to be successful. So getting more into community partnerships, we start out with the type of partners that you will need for this project and why each type of partner is integral to this project. We then provide information on how to form a partnership. For many members, this is a section they can just skip over because they've formed many partnerships. But some of our members are new to national service or event planning, and we hope this information will provide clarity and some instruction. So we are on page 24, just so everyone knows. We've also included a section on what to expect from a partnership for both the VISTA and the partner. And in some situations, this might be obvious, but for others, it's important to define what the partnership really is and what will contribute. So this section emphasizes the reciprocal benefits of a partnership, and we also emphasize the importance of thanking a community partner. And to help a VISTA with thanking their partners, we provide a thank you template in this guide's supplemental materials. We also include a little blurb on how to form a partnership that if you're looking at the section that says, hi, my name is blank, and I'm calling on behalf of blank, that helps a VISTA do a bit of a cold call if they've never done a cold call before and trying to start a partnership up. So on page 26 now, we have a section on fundraising. So for this specific project, food drive, fundraising isn't always necessary, but we include it because it's a valuable marketing tool. Because fundraising letters, by their very nature, inform people of both the service day and the organization that's seeking funding. This is also a great learning opportunity for members who have never raised funds before, and this information can be applied to future fundraising efforts also. So to help VISTAs who are new to fundraising, we've included a sample script for making cold calls to potential donors. In our supplemental materials for this guide, we've also included a solicitation letter template, along with a few letter writing tips and a fundraising thank you letter to help VISTA members thank their donors. So we tried to make this as comprehensive as possible. So moving on to page 27, we have recruiting and managing volunteers. And while a food drive specifically might not use a large number of volunteers, it's important that the volunteers that you have are managed properly. So in this section, we emphasize the importance of a positive volunteer experience. We offer some tips on recruiting volunteers and conclude with suggestions on how to thank and recognize your volunteers. Also, on this page, we have a little section called Day of the Event. Here, we include some key steps to make sure your volunteers get a full and satisfying experience. We also offer the option of having a small reflection before the event and remind the coordinator about the importance of taking pictures and how they can be used after the project. And just like any other section in this template, the day of event is specific to this food drive. So all of the other project guides have a day of event section that's specific to that one also. So moving on to page 28, if you're still following, I hope you are, we have wrapping up. So often we find that once a service project is complete, it's just over, that's it. But here we explain the importance and benefits of wrapping up a project properly. Some key aspects of wrapping up a project are taking and distributing pictures, thanking partners, volunteers, donors, and writing and disseminating a post-project press release. In this guide's supplemental materials, we've included sample press releases for before the event and also after the event. Editable versions of these are available online, and instructions on how to use press releases can be found in the Marketing and Promotions Guide that Lexi is going to talk about in the resources section of the larger document. So we made sure to include information about both AmeriCorps VISTA and your host site in all marketing materials, and we encourage users of the guide to do the same. So also on this page, we have budget. So with our budgets for our projects, we made every effort that we could to keep the cost low and make that more manageable for our members to do these projects. And the project budgets, as you can see, the estimated cost range varies very, very widely. And that's all because where you are, the situation that you're in, the partnerships that you have all affect how much money you will be able to put into the service project and how much money you'll have to fundraise for this project. So because these estimates are so rough, we've included an explanation for each line item, and this will help members figure out a more accurate budget for their specific project. So moving on to the next page, and probably the next page because we're looking at the supplemental materials next. Great, thanks. So first item in our supplemental materials is a checklist, and this is to help the project planner ensure that no important steps in this project are missed, and so that they can just cross things off as they get them done, which is great. And next we have a sample pre-event press release. And after this, we also have a sample post-event press release. And they look pretty similar because press releases, by their nature, will often look similar if you're still working with the same organization, doing the same type of work. So the logos are going to be the same if you're doing the same type of project with the same organization. And so next up, we have 2 sample flyers. And just like the press releases, they have editable versions online so that members can simply go in and change the information that's relevant to them, change the logos, and they're good to go. And we also included 2 types of flyers to show multiple examples of what a successful flyer might look like. And these flyers are in Microsoft Publisher format for ease of formatting, and they're available online, like I said. And any additional information that will be generally useful to creating an event can be found in our resources section, which Lexi is going to talk about now.
Great, thanks, Chelsea. So in addition to the 5 detailed project guides that we created, we also have another section of tools to help people plan their service days. And my favorite part about this resources section is that many of these materials will be helpful in other areas of a VISTA member service, so they can really go beyond helping to plan a service day. So the first piece we're going to look at is the Marketing and Promotions Guide. And each of the 5 major projects that we outline follow the same guidelines when it comes to writing and distributing press releases, as well as designing the flyers. So this section gives details on information that all of the marketing materials should include, as well as where and when to distribute the pieces. And like I said, while this information is targeted specifically at National Days of Service, it can also be applied to marketing any event that a VISTA is planning. So another tool that we have that can stand on its own is the Media Contact Worksheet, which is a template for members to complete to see who they should be contacting for different types of outreach and promotion. So like local newspapers and radio stations. And if you click on the link, you'll be given an editable version in Microsoft Word, so members can type directly into it and save it for future use. And while this is a key piece in getting press coverage for a service day, it can again be used for any kind of event that a VISTA is planning. And speaking about getting some awareness out there, that leads right into our next resource, which is the Social Media Guide. And again, this document focuses on generating attention for service day projects, but the information can also be applied to any aspect of VISTA service. This document basically outlines best practices and tips for posting on Facebook and Twitter. And hopefully you'll see in a minute that it's illustrated with some fun visuals. There we go. This guide goes over the importance of hashtags, what organizations you should tag, as well as how to build up interest and then deliver results through social media posts. It focuses primarily on Twitter and Facebook because those are the 2 most commonly used sites, but it also does touch on using Instagram and YouTube to really show your audience the work you're doing. And just like the Marketing and Promotions Guide, this piece is tailored around service days, but it can be applied to so much more. And personally, I hope that VISTAs will take this information and make their AmeriCorps programs in general more visible by really utilizing all that social media has to offer. All right. So the next resource that we have available is the Other Project Ideas. And this section of the site is perfect for someone that doesn't think one of the 5 detailed projects would work for their program, or someone that's just looking for a new idea to try. So here there are a dozen extra project ideas, each with a small paragraph about what the service day would entail. And since our main project guides are so detailed, people can then go through and pull out the sections they need to complete one of these other service day options. So for example, they might pick one of these options and then combine it with information on forming community partnerships from the food drive, along with the Marketing and Promotions Guide, and add in the Volunteer Management Military Care Packages project, and they have a whole service day. So the next resource that I'm going to talk to you all about is the Choose Your Project quiz. And this quiz limits your options to the 5 detailed project guides, but it really gives VISTA members a good idea of the resources they have available for planning a service day. So with 6 questions ranging from how many volunteers do you have to what is your budget and even how long do you have to plan your service day. After completing the quiz, members will know exactly what they have to work with and will be given a suggested service day to plan. Now, if people still have some questions about putting on a service day after going through all of the guides and ideas, they can check out the Frequently Asked Questions section. Here you can find answers to questions like, what do I do if too many volunteers come to my event? We really try to think of questions people might come up with and then provide them with some answers so they can have a successful and hopefully stress-free service day. So back to our final section, which is Other Resources. This page has all kinds of extra tools to help people plan and promote their day of service. There's links to already existing toolkits like those that are in place for the MLK Day of Service, along with videos from some other programs so members can see what a successful service day looks like. And hopefully they'll also see how they can create their own video promoting their hard work. Members can also find links to books and articles that give even more advice on utilizing social media to its fullest, and there's even some resources on recruiting corporate volunteers. So basically, if someone needs more information about any aspect of planning a service day, they should be able to find some help here in the whole resources section. And as I mentioned at the start of this piece, one of the best parts of this section is that so many things can be applied to events beyond service days. So VISTAs can use these tools to boost the overall visibility of national service, which is something that I think everyone here wants to see. So I would like to thank all of you for hanging in there with us and making it through our website. And I'd also like to thank all of our supervisors and state office representatives, and especially our team coach, Jean, again, for supporting us through this journey. It was a long process, but I think our final product is something that VISTA members will be able to utilize well into the future, whether you choose to follow a guide for planning the service days or pull out one of the functional tools and apply it to different aspects of service. Our team created a really functional document that will hopefully assist in increasing the visibility of national service and spreading the overall awareness of VISTA's anti-poverty focus. And with that, I'll give it back to Andy.
Great. So thank you so much, Lexi, Chelsea, and Katie, for all the great work that you and your teammates put in on this resource. I think it's really tremendous, and as I can see already in some of the comments, I think you've got a lot of fans out there in VISTA land. So now we have time for questions from the audience for this team. So if you'd like to ask a question on the phone, obviously you need to be dialed in. So if you're not yet dialed in, you can do that now. But if you are already dialed in, you'll press *1 and record your first and last name at the prompt. You can also ask questions online by using the Q&A feature in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. So, so let me just take a look and see if we have questions coming in. And operator, can you give us those instructions one more time for asking questions by phone?
Sure. The phone lines are now open for questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *1 and record your name. If you'd like to withdraw your question, please press *2. Thank you.
All right, so we have a question from the Q&A, and that is, how do you suggest we acquire funding or materials for these service projects? So any ideas you have about how to get the resources to actually get the materials to make the project happen?
Sure. So this is Lexi. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great. We actually do have specific sections for each of the 5 projects that give some, best practices and ideas for finding resources. So I know specifically in our book drive template, we really recommend reaching out to your community and have them hosting boxes. So places like, local coffee shops or keeping it really local in that aspect. And then also we do recommend reaching out to any other AmeriCorps programs that you have in your area, because that just really increases your network and they could know someone too.
Terrific. Thank you. And operator, do we have any questions on the phone yet?
I'm not showing any questions at this time.
Okay, great. So a question came in, is there a plan for maintaining this website after these fantastic leaders end their service? And I can answer that question, and the answer, of course, is yes. All of this will live on the VISTA campus, and so it'll be accessible now and in the future. So, so while they use this Wix site to put it together, we'll be able to link to it and access it on the campus. So that's a great question. So someone else says, what if we have a question after reviewing it? Who could we ask or call? So if you run into questions about the resource, you can send your questions to us here at vistawebinars@cns.gov, and we'll show that email address again at the very end of the session, but it's vistawebinars, plural with an S, at CNS, like Corporation National Service.gov. All right, and check again on the phones, operator. Do we have any questions that have come in?
I'm not showing any questions at this time.
All right, terrific. Well, I don't see any in the Q&A either. So again, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate this team, not only the 3 who are on the phone with us today, but their colleagues who worked very hard and I think very smart on this project, added a lot of creativity and went far beyond what we had envisioned here for this project. So congratulations to you all, and thanks for all your work. And we look forward to having this on the campus and having folks use it for years to come. All right, so we're now going to move on and take a look at the next challenge that was posed to a group of VISTA leaders. And this relates to how we could determine VISTA sponsors can provide effective on-site orientation and training for their members. And just a bit of background on this challenge. The quality of on-site orientation and training that VISTA members receive can depend on a number of variables. It could be the training expertise of the supervisor, the relevance of the training content and design, the effectiveness of how it's actually delivered, and so forth. Many VISTA project sponsors, organizations, supervisors, and ultimately VISTAs could benefit from having a model, like a template, that they could use for a comprehensive on-site orientation and training curriculum that would include essential VISTA orientation elements and effective training design. So that was the challenge that this team decided to take on, again, looking at how VISTA sponsors can provide more effective on-site orientation and training. And now we'll meet some of the members from that team. We have with us today 4 members. Allison Wilhite from Greater Homewood Community Corporation in Baltimore. We have Sabrina Kleiman, who's a VISTA leader at the University of Wisconsin Parkside VISTA project in Kenosha. Ingrid Velez, a leader at the Boys and Girls Club Washington State in Seattle. And Patricia Lomax, a leader with the Parent Community Student Services branch in the Los Angeles Unified School District. They're going to tell us about the others on the team and show us the results of their work. Now I'm going to turn us over to Patricia.
Thanks, Andy. And I just wanted to say a quick thank you and great job to the other teams. It's great to see what other Action Learning Challenge teams have done, so thank you for that. So along with the 4 of us on the call today that Andy just introduced, we also have 4 other amazing team members that we're presenting on behalf of today. So we have Alicia Kanya with LAF, formerly known as the Legal Assistance Foundation in Chicago, Illinois. Tara O'Neill with Serve New York in Buffalo, New York. Portia Holland with Serve Philadelphia in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And Priscilla Novoa with the UCLA Bruin Corps in Los Angeles, California. So shout out to all of them. They were great teammates. And a very special thank you to Kapula Wiyudama, who was our coach and did an amazing job of guiding our team throughout our process. So an extra special thank you to Kapula. So as we got started as a team, thinking about our challenge and reflecting on our own on-site orientation and training experiences as both VISTA members and as leaders, one of the first things we did as a team was decide specifically what we wanted to accomplish through our Action Learning Challenge. We came up with the following 2 goals. To create sample on-site orientation and training models, including guides, learning objectives, or agendas to address the needs of a sponsoring organization, whether it is a single site, multi-site, local, or national program. We wanted to try and address, since every VISTA project is so different, we wanted to make it helpful for VISTA projects across the board. Our other goal was to provide effective practices to assist sponsoring organizations achieve the guidelines laid out by the Corporation for National and Community Service in the VISTA member handbook. So since CNCS already has some specific goals that they want achieved during OSOT, we wanted to make sure to include those as well. So we use those goals to drive the process of creating what became our final product. So our final product is a 25-page document that will be available to download from the VISTA campus. Our goal is to create a guidebook that is easily accessible but not overwhelming, and still providing quite a bit of information about OSOT planning. Here we have the cover page and our table of contents for the guidebook, which is probably a little hard to read, but we'll be able to see it later. We really wanted to guide supervisors and leaders step by step through the process of planning an on-site orientation and training from start to finish. For those that are looking for more information about a specific section, the contents are clickable, so you can skip ahead to the section that you're looking for. So to start, our experience has shown that a well-prepared orientation covers the elements presented in the CNCS objectives and learning outcomes that we discussed in one of our goals that we wanted to keep in mind. A planning timeline and sample agenda provides our recommended steps toward preparing your OSOT. And since we recognize that each VISTA sponsoring organization has different needs and project goals, we provided 3 areas of focus that universally apply and can be tailored to your needs. These 3 areas are 1, training topics, 2, interactive activities, and 3, evaluation. Lastly, throughout our guide, you will find tips from the field shared by VISTA members and other leaders about their OSOT experience, what worked well, and what could have been improved. In addition, the team reviewed many VISTA campus and online resources and organized the links into an easy-to-search standalone document, what we've called our OSOT resource spreadsheet that is available for your quick reference. Now I'll turn it over to Allison to get a little more in-depth about the CNCS goals and other components of our guidebook.
Great. Thank you, Patricia. We started our guidebook by looking at the end. That is, the expected outcomes of OSOT as set by CNCS. Effective orientations can take many different shapes depending on a program's time and capacity, but each should meet these outcomes. As a team, we kept these in mind when framing this guidebook. CNCS provides a thorough list, and the key outcomes are shown here. The guidebook expands upon each of these points with details of what should be discussed with the VISTA member. For example, the first bullet point regarding the working relationship between VISTA and the supervisor suggests discussing with the VISTA the supervisor's other roles and responsibilities, her management style, and to set expectations for meetings and communication throughout the VISTA's term. When planning your own OSOT, we recommend starting by reviewing these outcomes and brainstorming how you could meet them with your VISTA members. Next, we included a suggested timeline that breaks down the planning process. It serves as a guide for what to do and when to do it as you prepare for your OSOT. We recommend you start planning at least 6 weeks before, but if time is limited, this timeline can easily be adapted. Instead, you can use it as a checklist to manage and accomplish our proposed planning steps. Also, the timeline refers to other sections of the guidebook, such as creating an agenda, selecting training topics, and evaluating your OSOT afterward, so you should have everything at your fingertips when you begin planning by having this guidebook in hand. Sample agendas were the most requested resource when we surveyed supervisors for this team challenge, so of course we had to include a section on how to create an agenda. When creating your agenda, we believe a well-rounded OSOT should include the following 4 components: an overview of CNCS requirements and policies, in addition to the requirements and policies of your organization, an orientation to the community and its culture, skills training, and team-building exercises between VISTAs, staff, and community members. Because each program has different needs and may be conducting OSOT on a limited time frame, we wanted to provide a variety of planning tools and agendas so that supervisors and leaders can brainstorm what will be most effective for their program. CNCS already provides several great resources on the VISTA campus, so this section of the guidebook gives a brief overview and links to them. Next, we wanted to provide some common training topics to consider. Beyond orienting your VISTA members to the policies of VISTA and your organization, OSOT is a great time to provide them with relevant skills training that will help them start their projects with confidence. In the guidebook, we highlighted 5 common training topics to consider. They are preparing for meetings, managing up in office professionalism, community organizing, effective presentations, and partnerships and networking, which is presented here as an example. For each of these topics, we provided an overview of why it is important to cover early in your VISTA's year, example learning objectives to guide your presentation, and an activity to help the VISTA retain the information learned. For example, when training on partnerships and networking, it is helpful to guide your VISTA through developing a 30-second elevator speech. A good elevator speech will help them quickly explain the role of the VISTA at your organization and in the community. To practice, we suggest you host a casual event at your office for staff and community members to meet the new VISTAs. Encourage your VISTAs to meet every person in attendance, give their elevator speech, and ask about the work the others do. This kind of retention activity also serves as a great relationship-building activity for your VISTA. Furthermore, each training topic includes links to additional online resources, such as VISTA webinars, to help you prepare for your training or for your VISTAs to review later as they need. Also, at the end of this section, we've provided a list of other common training topics to help you brainstorm what will be most relevant for your members to learn, considering their project goals. Next, Ingrid will present on the value of incorporating team building and interactive activities in your OSOT agenda.
Thank you, Allison. So closely linked to training are interactive activities or interactions during OSOT, also known as icebreakers, and if purposely used, can be highly effective when incorporating them during OSOT. So these mindful interactions can use tension, energize the group, start conversation, and build relation within the team. In the OSOT guideline, we broke down the activities into three main categories: introductory, team building, and topic exploration. So while exploring resources for our project, we found many great activities online, and we were sure to link these resources on our guidebook. And some of these links are from the VISTA campus. But we also wanted to incorporate examples, and so we provided these following categories. And this slide provides an example of an introductory activity, the name game. All examples follow a very similar format, showing the length of the activity, goal, and detailed instructions on how to conduct the activity. So in this group, as you can see, there's showing the group size, how long it will take, materials that are needed to perform these interactive activities. It is important to note that not all the interactive activities require a lot of planning or a lot of people. In the guidebook, we provide a list of quick activities that can be used during OSOT. And I thought there was a different slide that we show some examples of quick activities are like Post-it notes that can be where participants can write their questions and put them up on a board during the break, and then come back from the break and answer the questions and take down the sticky notes as they're answered. Another example of a quick interactive activity is self-assessment, where participants reflect on what they learned about a topic by giving a written or verbal self-assessment. And then lastly, another example is stretch break, which we all might need at this point, where participants can get restless or sleepy and take a quick guided stretch break to get the blood flowing and their brains working to re-engage with the activity of OSOT. So now Sabrina will speak about an important component of training, evaluation.
Thanks, Ingrid. Yeah, so evaluation is a very important part of the planning process, and we wanted to make sure that we included that as part of our on-site orientation and training guide. So it's important before filing away the planning materials that you evaluate your OSOT and incorporate the information into next year's planning. And depending on the nature of your program, there are a number of ways you can go about this. But one of the key things to make sure of is really just to make sure that those who played a role in the OSOT should at least sit down and have a discussion that includes asking questions such as what went well with the planning, what should be improved on, were the training topics relevant, how effective were the facilitators and or presenters, and review any survey results that you may have. Which gets into the next section that we have, which was as part of the OSOT evaluation tool, we provide some examples of surveys for people. So for larger projects, it may make sense to conduct a more formal survey of the VISTA members who have gone through the training, and you can collect this anonymously on paper or using online services such as Google Forms or SurveyMonkey for free. And you might want to consider breaking down the survey by presentation topic so that you can get feedback on those very specific training sessions. And depending on how you structured your OSOT, you also may want to collect feedback around the original CNCS learning objectives that we mentioned at the beginning to make sure that your VISTAs have actually taken from your orientation what you intended them to take. And we also talk a little bit about survey design to offer some guidance about that. And just as a final thing, I wanted to touch on something that Patricia mentioned at the very beginning, which was that throughout the guide, we provide a lot of links to different resources that are already available on the VISTA campus. And so to go along with our guide, we created a spreadsheet that contains all of the links. And, you know, we do recognize that people are pressed for time and don't want to sort through the whole document. So this was created and as it was intended to be a standalone document to accompany the guide. And we ask two simple questions at the beginning: what your role is and what type of resource you're looking for. And based on the answer to that, it highlights things that may be of interest to you. Green highlights are things that match your criteria exactly, and yellow are other things you may be interested in that you may find to be helpful. So this is another thing that we have that will be made available on the VISTA campus. And at this point, we'd like to, I'll turn it back over to Andy, but just another huge thank you to the team overall and to Capella for helping us through this entire process.
Great. Thank you, Sabrina. Thanks, Ingrid and Allison as well, and your teammates. Another great job. It is another amazing opportunity for me to see the creativity, the energy, and the dedication that VISTA leaders put not only into their role as a leader, but also into a project that they take on above and beyond their other duties and responsibilities. So again, this is very impressive and a resource that I know will get lots of use and make life better for plenty of supervisors, leaders, and ultimately for the VISTA members. All right, so once again, we have time for your questions. So I want to invite you, if you have a question, to, if you're on the phone, you can press *1 and record your name at the prompt. Otherwise, you can ask a question through the Q&A feature in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and I will be queuing up those questions as they come in. One question that's already come is, where can we get this? How do I get my hands on it? What's the link? So as I think it was Sabrina who mentioned, we will make this available. There are a couple of resources here, the guidebook as well as this very clever little interactive tool that helps you find resources most useful to you. We'll be posting those on the VISTA campus. I don't have the link yet because they're not up there, but as soon as they're built in, we'll have that link and be setting that out to everybody. All right. And while we're waiting for questions to come in on the phone, Matthew asks, what about options for training, I'm guessing an OSOT, on-site orientation training, for VISTA teams that are geographically separated, those who can't meet up at a whim. So I'm going to put that back to the team. So Ingrid or Allison, Sabrina, do you have any thoughts about how you can orient and train geographically dispersed teams of VISTAs?
Sure, this is Allison. This was definitely one of the issues that we were trying to take into consideration when we started out with this challenge. It's very difficult to create some comprehensive OSOT guide for all the very different types of programs that are out there, those that are very local to those that are regional or even those that are national. So what we were hoping was that this guidebook and the complementary resource spreadsheet could really be a tool that consolidates a lot of the resources that a different site could use and adapt to meet their needs. For example, if you're geographically separated, like my program is with Greater Homewood Community Corporation, we are a statewide program, I would provide this guidebook to our site so that they can administer an effective OSOT at the site with their one VISTA. And at the opportunities that we have to bring all of our VISTA members together, as limited as they might be, I can make sure that it was fleshed out further through a more comprehensive sponsored training.
Great. Thank you, Allison. I don't know if Ingrid or Sabrina, if you have anything to add to that.
This is Sabrina. I mean, I agree with what Allison said, that it was one of the things that the team was looking at overall, and part of it was even the struggle of defining what on-site orientation and training meant to us. Different projects look at it different ways, but ultimately it's really making sure the VISTA is oriented to what their service will be throughout the year. So not being able to meet up with other VISTAs isn't necessarily a barrier to having an effective on-site orientation. It's really the supervisor putting in the time and planning to make that happen.
Great. Thank you for that. Another question, is there a VISTA supervisor handbook that outlines what realities and expectations to have for their VISTA member? And I can jump in and answer that. There is, in fact, a supervisor manual, we call it. It's focused more on actually managing the VISTA project overall and the requirements for the reporting and some things about the memorandum of agreement and budgeting and those sorts of things. It focuses more on the administrative aspects of it. But the VISTA campus for supervisors is really the place to go for resources and materials for managing the relationship between the supervisor and the VISTA member. So we've got the campus, the supervisor's campus is organized around the various roles that VISTA supervisors play. So there's a section in there on creating the VISTA assignment description, recruitment and selection of VISTA members. And then there is a section on on-site orientation and training, as this team referenced. There's one on coaching and supporting, supervising, and transitioning. So all of the various roles that VISTA supervisors play, we have resources, materials, and online training courses that supervisors can take right there on the VISTA campus. So it's not so much in the handbook, but more interactive in addition to what's in the supervisor's manual. And this resource that the team just reviewed is going to be posted there in the section on on-site orientation and training. So that's where supervisors will be able to find it. Operator, do we have any questions on the phone line?
I'm not showing any questions at this time.
Okay, well, I don't see any others here in the Q&A, so I'm guessing, oh wait, there was one. This is actually a question that relates to the first presentation we heard on the National Days of Service project ideas, and it was related to some of the documents in that resource are publisher files, Microsoft Publisher, Those will be available as PDFs as well, so if you don't have access to Publisher, you'll be able to download and print them. And, those are examples of flyers and other marketing materials, I believe, that are in the Publisher format. So we'll have those all accessible as PDFs. So I think that takes care of it for the questions. So, hearing that we don't have any more, I'm going to ask you now if you would take a moment to fill out our quick little evaluation poll that you see appearing on the screen now. It really does give us a good way to know what you're interested in, what you found useful from this presentation, and what you might like to see in upcoming presentations. I also want to take a moment now to invite you to our next webinar, and this is particularly for VISTA members who are getting closer to the end of their service and might be interested in working for the federal government, and it's on navigating the federal hiring process and using the non-competitive eligibility benefits that VISTA members receive. So, so that's coming up on June 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you haven't already, you'll be receiving an email invitation to that session. You can also find the registration link on the VISTA webinars page. It's also on the calendar on the VISTA campus. So I want to, again, thank you all for participating, and again, thank our two teams of VISTA leaders for all of the tremendous work they did for navigating and being really flexible and working through our technical issues. So thank you all for being with us today, and I hope you have a great afternoon.